Hello and welcome to Hampton Roads Business Live. In this episode, we're going to be talking with Charlie Glaize from Charlie Glaize Productions, local voiceover talent and actor. Welcome, Charlie.
Thank you, Rory. Good to be here.
That is a really unusual occupation that most people don't run into, people who do voiceovers and all. And I know people heard you because you're on radio, TV, and all. And actually, sometimes I travel other parts of the country and I hear you, so I know. Wow, that's Charlie doing that. So could you tell us a little bit about how in the world did you get in the voiceover business?
Well, it's interesting, Rory. You know, when I start thinking about it and people ask these kind of questions, I think, would you ever go to an airport and you hear voices on the loudspeaker? Of course, everybody hears commercials, but there are audio books. There are any number of things where you hear people speaking out loud. And I always thought, that's what I want to do. When I started hearing cartoons as a kid, you know, Huckleberry, Chuckleberry Hound, Yogi Bear. You know, I thought, I can do that. Some of my first words were like spelling T-I-D-E, tide, my mom says. And, you know, you just start...
So you're doing commercials from a very young age.
I think at age 2, I was advertising Tide to my mom, and she bought it, and there was my first successful campaign. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, it's just one of those things where you have a knack for it. And I'll tell you what, my first voice coach, although I didn't know it at the time, was my younger brother. When we would get punished occasionally, my folks would send us to the room, and I would break out the comic books and read out loud to my brother. And if I wasn't getting the voice of Archie or Superman or someone just right, he would say, you know, work on that voice a little bit. And so he was flogging me as my voice coach early on. So I kind of had a knack for that. And then I liked reading out loud. Had a knack for that even in grade school and later in college. I took an oral interpretation class, one of the best things I ever did. You know, I thought, well, this will be easy. It was a little challenging, but it was fun. And my project was to produce something with oral interpretation skills. And I read out loud with sound effects that I got to add, Horton hatches the egg. Mm-hmm. And so my professor said, you know, you need to stick with this. Keep doing this. There might be some money in it. So I traced my voice as the thread that runs very true throughout my life. In fact, the Horton hatches the egg story, great Dr. Seuss thing, I'm sure everybody's familiar with it. But I later recorded that again when I worked for an ad agency when I graduated from college, after I graduated. And I played that for a friend of mine who had a daughter. And I said, well, you know, let me put in this cassette. You remember cassettes? Well, I had that, and I had beep tones on there, and the woman's daughter just loved it. Mm. And, you know, beep, Horton hatches the egg. You know, a Horton is faithful 100%, beep, and she would turn the page and laugh. And this friend of mine had another friend who was watching all of this, and she said, that guy, you know, it's kind of cute, which I was then. And I like his voice and everything. Long story short, she ended up being my wife because the first thing that attracted me to her to me, was my voice, and Horton hatches the egg. So he's been faithful 100% in a lot of ways, and I still play that cassette for people with kids.
Huh, right. And I know that you've done audiobooks.
I have done a few, yes.
And that seems to be a real popular market. I mean, I know I listen to them all the time.
Expanding, growing all the time.
Yeah, it's really getting popular because you can get them on Audible from Amazon or iTunes or whatever. So,
correct.
So they're everywhere. And that's an easy way to listen to stuff that you don't have time to read. But you're an actor, right, and you've done character voices too. Different kinds of characters, I know, over the years. And one that I know you did was Patton. As a matter of fact, on this page somewhere, you'll probably see a video for General Advice, which is the character that you have, which I think is really original. And it's modeled after George C. Scott's Patton the movie, the opening of the movie.
That's right.
Which anybody who's seen it probably remembers the big American flag and the opening. And it's very, very, very creative.
Well, I always like that character, you know, that opening speech.
Yeah.
I want you to remember that advertising is important in everyone's life. Yeah, that kind of
And you dressed the whole part. So,
Right.
Yeah, dressed up like him and all.
Yes, you
So
helped me
I
with
encourage
that.
you to take a look at that. And
Thank you.
And all. But speaking of that, you also did the voiceover for the MacArthur Memorial's new HD video, the MacArthur story.
That's right. Another general.
Another
Yes.
general, yes. And the thing I know of you, because I've known you for a long time, is you have such a range. So you can do softer stuff, you can do harder things, you can, you're really very good at what you do. I've used you myself in my business numerous times for numerous clients, and
Right.
it amazes me how you can do what you do. It's not easy, I can tell you from trying to do it myself. It just isn't as easy as it looks. But you have an area that you're going after. It's the voice for the baby boomers.
Right.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
Well, it's a demographic I've just targeted because, for one thing, I am a baby boomer. Anybody born between, I'm giving my age away a little bit, between 1946 and 1965, you're my target audience. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a very popular demographic, and it's growing. Here's a few facts. One of the things is, you start to lose your memory if you're a baby boomer, so I have some things written down here. The oldest of the baby boomers are now starting to retire, and it's a huge target for marketers in all categories, especially medical things, health-related things, retirement, vacation, spending. All of that is very, very critical. And so I thought I would, not that I don't appeal to everybody, I can still do kids' voices, but I can do an elderly voice. A character elderly voice, whatever you want. But by the year 2030, baby boomers will make up about 20% of the total population.
Yeah.
So everybody's saying that's a critical audience.
Right.
And so, when people think of baby boomers, I want them to think Charlie Glaize. He's one of us, one of them, whatever you want. But I can identify with a lot of the needs of baby boomers and wants and desires.
And one of the things that's happened here over the years, of course, with technology changing, is that, it used to be you'd go into a studio and you'd do the recording and that, so local people could use you, but I know you did national stuff back then too, but still it was a little different than it is today.
Right.
Now today, I know that you have a home studio.
That's right.
But you also have a mobile studio, so even when you were on vacation, you were able to do things for clients who needed something done and all. Can you tell us about the technology that you have at your home studio and in the mobile end of things?
Boy, you're bringing up everything I want you to.
Well, okay, that's my job.
I've seen a huge arc in technology since I started. There was the answering machine. I used to be on the road and beep into my answering machine at home and say, who's trying to reach me? What kind of fish are on the line that I need to follow up on? And then we moved to, from audio cassettes to CDs, and you think, how does it get better than digital technology? Well, you get a computer and you record at home. I started doing auditions by digital software in the early 90s, and was one of the first people in this part of the country to have an ISDN line, which is a very high bandwidth direct connection to any studio worldwide that has their own ISDN capability. So that meant, hey, maybe I can get off the road. I used to drive 35 to 40,000 miles a year. Wore out countless cars, I don't know, but driving to DC, to Richmond, the Carolinas, and around here, always tooling around and recording at local studios, which is great, but I love the home studio technology.
Yeah, the commute is wonderful.
25 feet.
25 feet, yeah.
Maybe 26, and of course the the casual dress is appealing
Right.
to me as well.
Now, when you
Very
say a
minimal.
home studio, I mean, you have a really nice, it's a sound booth and everything else.
Right.
And people can actually, if they want to, they can call in and listen to you recording it. So if they wanted to have a director direct you, or they wanted to listen to what's going on, they can actually do that.
This is what's interesting, along with the MP3 capability that came about in the early 90s, where you could compress a sound file so small and send it out by email or by an FTP site, which I have as well. If someone has like a 20-minute narration, as I've done for you, it's no problem just to download it from where I have uploaded it. And if you wanted, for instance, to listen as I record, I have what is called the phone patch capability, where I can hear you in my headphones, and you flogged me a few times by ear, said, no, read it this way, or you know, we want a little bit more of an intonation, dramatic here, a little lighter here, and you know, you can adjust the pace while you listen. But a lot of times, as with you, people just say, here's the script, record it, we need it tomorrow. So deadlines are condensed, and that's one thing I've had to adjust to. All time zones try to connect with me sometimes at awkward times. But as you mentioned, with the mobile studio, I have a Macintosh with software and a microphone that's very directional, and I've been used to setting up for acoustics in most hotel rooms. We went to Hawaii a few years ago, and although the time difference was a little annoying, I could record early in the morning for East Coast clients, and then we're off to see a volcano or something later in the day. But people didn't notice a change in quality, which is the important thing.
Right.
So,
right. Well, that certainly makes your lifestyle a lot easier.
Yes, it does.
And it allows you to still deliver a high quality product.
Right.
And I know that I have used you as an actor and to do on-camera narrations and things like that. And so I know that you do that as well.
Well, that helps when you consider the versatility that you need to have with voiceover work. Of course, it helps if you can do character voices, but for narrations and things like that, it's nice to be able to jump into frame and narrate out loud and demonstrate things, read off the teleprompter or whatever is required for video needs.
Well, I can tell you, reading off a teleprompter is not easy. And I mean, it sounds like it might be easy, but it isn't. It really is an art to do it in such a way that you don't look like you're reading it.
Right.
And you don't sound like you're reading it.
Right.
And the other thing that I can say about working with you, and I've worked with you for a long time,
We go
20
back a ways,
years
don't we?
or so, I guess, at least 20 years. But I've used you on numerous productions, but one of the things I can say is that you'll come in and we'll be doing a thing about an ultrasonic cutting machine or a crankshaft milling machine or something like that, and you'll go through using the teleprompter, and you'll go through and it just sounds great, and it sounds like you're an authority and all, and then at the end you say, what did I say? Yeah. I mean, you have no clue as to what it was, but you have a knack for being able to take direction really well and everything. So,
well, let's just say pretend like I know what I'm talking about. That's
yeah, but you're a good pretender. So and I know that's a talent that you have to do. And so you're local here in the area. This is your full-time thing. It's not like some people do this on the side or something. This is your full-time thing.
Right.
And let me ask you, as far as getting into this business, did you always want to be your own boss?
I hadn't thought of it until, like many people may be thinking now, voiceovers as a career, what is that all about? Well, when I was working in radio in the, again, I'm giving away my age a little bit, early 80s, I was starting
We don't think you're 80.
Yeah.
Just teasing with you, Joe. Just teasing, Joe.
That's a baby boomer question. But I started to talk with actors here locally who were saying, yeah, I recorded a commercial for a car dealer here locally. And so I started getting a demo tape together and sending it around to ad agencies and production facilities. And what do you know? People said, let's call this guy. And I started doing things. And then I phased out of radio by asking my boss if I could go to the night shift. And I thought, this is kind of a risk, but let's see how far we can go with this. So I had a night shift like from 7 to midnight at a local radio station.
Mm-hmm.
And during the day, I was free to freelance. And I landed a couple of pretty big accounts at that time. And
Well, that's good.
Family Channel Cable Network. I did some promos for them every week. And Circuit City was a
Yeah,
big
Circuit
one.
City was a
Yeah,
big one that
yeah,
you had at
yeah.
the time.
I was national spokesman for them, which was fun to do. In fact, that's what led to the home studio. I was tired of driving to Richmond, where the production facility was,
Right.
to replace a tag or a price on something where they had just recorded a commercial 2 hours before with me, and I turned my car around and off I go again. So the home studio was a real breakthrough. They said, "We'll build you a studio." Cool.
Well, that's interesting. So, when you became, when you decided to go on your own and you became, your Charlie Glaize Productions, was there something harder about it than you thought it would be?
Shall we start with taxes?
Yeah.
I was a sole proprietor for a number of years, and you do have to set aside money for taxes. I didn't see that coming. Warning.
Yeah.
There's a signpost up ahead. But I incorporated a few years ago, Charlie Glaize Productions Incorporated, and so that was.
But there's still taxes.
There's still you can't get away from it.
You can't get away from that now.
Yeah. So the other thing is it's an all-encompassing thing. I'm my own bookkeeper. I manage my own website. I set up my own microphone. I edit everything. So when you stop and think of all you have to do, you wonder, what am I getting into here? Or what am I involved in now? So thankfully, I'm a healthy baby boomer that keeps on going.
Well, it seems like you've certainly been successful at it. If you had someone was going to be going into business and they're talking to you, maybe not the voiceover business, but any business, what are a few things that you would suggest that they do as advice if they're thinking about going into business for themselves?
I would say count the cost of what you're willing to put into it and realize you don't dabble in it if you're going to really be serious about it.
You got that right.
Well, you know that.
Yeah.
You started out with a camera and a VCR and moved on from there. But get the essentials going for you, and I would get consultation from financial people as well as other people that have started a similar business. And if you are married, talk with your spouse. Make sure they're on the same page with this, because it's quite an adjustment.
Right.
But
Okay.
it's fun. It's fun if it is your true passion.
Right, and that's one thing I hear about a lot about is
Yeah.
passion.
Right.
And you do have to be passionate about what you're doing, because you'll work harder for yourself than you ever will for anybody else.
That's right.
And if you're passionate about it, you love it, it's not work.
Right.
And
And the other side of that is you got to find a time to take a break.
yeah.
Don't let it consume you. I know we both fall into that temptation.
Yeah, we do.
sometimes.
We do.
Deadlines don't stop in our business, so
No.
I've got to be careful about that too, and learn to say no at times to deadlines and things like that coming at me full throttle.
Well, this is certainly interesting and different interview than I've been doing, because it's a topic that most people, you just don't get exposed to so much. You hear it all the time, but you just don't think about the person behind the voice
Right.
that you're hearing everywhere. And I know that I've heard you on commercials for car dealerships and McDonald's and you name it, a whole bunch of stuff. And I hear you all the time. Like I said, even when I'm out of town, you come on, I hear you. So very successful around the country, and a long career too. Is there anything else that you'd like to say here on the interview before
Well, another advantage of what you're just talking about is, and another thing I would say to someone getting into voice work, if you're versatile, that's good. If you can do some on-camera work, as well as do some characters and just be really adaptable to direction for any kind of a character, whether it's a cowboy or just some silly kind of a character. Just be open to do that, and realize that when you start a voiceover business, to have a home studio and realize you're not just primed for your local area, but you can be available anywhere on the
Nowadays,
planet.
yeah. Nowadays,
I have clients in Europe, and that's the main thing, the versatility, and knowing that I am not connected with any one ad agency or production facility.
So you're your own thing.
Yeah, I'm adaptable, and I have a number of agents in different parts of the country, but no exclusivity. So that's appealing to some people.
Okay.
And the other thing I was going to say, we mentioned taxes that are a sure thing. The other thing, death and taxes, right? When I moved to this area, I didn't know what was coming my way. I got a job at a radio station, and things changed when I started watching this program, and I didn't know I would later be affiliated with CBN, but I was, at the time, consumed with what I thought was just maybe being too consumed with the idea, what happens if I die? And I was wondering, you know, is this a common question? Am I just overthinking this? But now, looking back, I think a lot of people think about that. Most people think about it, but we tend to stay busy and we don't really consider it. All that to say, I started watching the 700 Club when I first moved here. And one night I prayed with this man named Pat Robertson. And the answer for me was Jesus Christ, who offers eternal life. And, you know, it was like, wow, is this really true? And for me it was. I'm not trying to necessarily be an evangelist here, but I'm wanting to thank the Hampton Roads community for embracing me business-wise, and the church life around here has been great. And after I received Christ as my Savior, so many things fell into place. I met my wife. With voiceover work, I was able to raise a family. We now have 2 grown sons who live in the area. We have grandkids, and I look back and say, thank you, Lord. You didn't just conquer death for me, but you've given me abundant life. And after I received the Lord, things came to mind. You know, they just rang differently than they had before, like even a Christmas carol. Hark the herald angels sing, you know that carol. Mild he lays his glory by, born that man no more shall die. Born to raise the sons of earth, born to give them second birth. So that's the other thing I would like to do. I'd like to honor God with what He has done in my life. And I'd like to also thank a friend of mine who has encouraged me lately. Would you mind if I introduce a friend of mine?
It's your interview.
I brought him along with me. His name is Bobby. Bobby, would you like to say hello to everyone?
Me?
Yes, you say hi to everyone right there.
Hi.
And that's Mr. Graham.
Hi, Mr. Graham.
Hello.
Gee, I like all the lights, the camera, the action.
Yeah, well, Bobby, I've been telling Mr. Graham here about my career.
Yeah?
You know, I do voiceovers around the world, you know that.
Yeah, did you tell him how much noise you make in the middle of the night sometimes?
I hadn't mentioned that, but I did say I was available in different time zones for different clients. But
So, what did you want to have me here for?
well, I wanted to thank you for encouraging me lately about, you know, we've just been rejoicing in how Jesus has been good to us. And I was telling you the other day, you know, I wish I'd discovered Jesus when I was younger. I wish I didn't have to wait until I was grown up. And remember what you said to me? You remember?
Oh, yeah. I said, as long as you found Jesus at some point, that's the important thing.
Right. And I appreciate, I mean, that meant a lot to me. Even though I'm grown up, I've found the answer.
And as for me,
You're not going to sing that song, are you? Well, in fact, I wish you would. Go ahead.
no, what I want you to do is sing with me.
You want me to sing with you?
You can do it.
But Bobby, you don't understand. I do a lot of voice work, but I've never sung in public before.
You can do it. Come on, I'll start. You know the words.
Okay, go ahead and start.
I don't have to wait until I'm grown up. Go.
To be loving and true, there are many little deeds of kindness.
That each day I can do.
I can read the Bible and pray.
Be a loving helper always.
I don't have to wait until I'm grown up
Although you did,
to be what Jesus.
wants me to be.
Okay, that's enough.
E.
Well, Bobby, again, thank you for everything you've done.
And thank you, Mr. Glaize, for having a hand in my life too.
Thank you, Bobby. And thank you, Rory, for letting Bobby come in and be my special guest.
Well, thank you for coming in, Charlie. So if you have a need for a voice talent or an actor, Charlie Glaize is right here in Virginia Beach. His contact information is on the website, on this page right below. And I'm sure that if you go to his site, you also see some samples of his work. And
Right,
I can
yes.
say that he does a marvelous job. So thank you for coming in, Charlie.
My pleasure, Rory. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here. Thank you, Hampton Roads.